that I made to make the change in my life was to throw my hands up and ask God to take over. That's really the only conscious decision.
You are listening to A Cup of SonRise, where we know a yawn is a silent scream for coffee. Now your host, Pastor Joe and Stada Inman. And good morning. It is Wednesday. That's right. It's hump day. We're going to get over that hump and go into the downhill slide. I've been there since I was 40, actually. The downhill slide. Thank you. I got somebody in there. Good morning, guys. You're on A Cup of SonRise with Pastor Joe and the one and the only and the one from bling, from the head down to the toes, the one and only
Stada rocks.
And we have a very special guest. Today is National Friends Day, and I knew I had to have this guy on. I've known this guy for way too long. Let me tell you how long I've known Chuck Bryant. I had a lot less hair. It was short, no facial hair. That's how long I've known Chuck. And my hair might have been just a little bit blacker. Would you say that's right, Chuck? Maybe just a little bit blacker?
Dark brown.
Yeah.
Yep.
You didn't have the long hair, the earrings, the tattoos, and all that.
Yeah. It's just so he's seen me when I was, less covered. Hey guys, this is Chuck Bryant, the CEO of WOTG Network. And he's involved in media with radio stations, Christian radio stations, and Christian TV. In fact, he has a Roku station here in Branson called the Branson Gospel TV, Branson Gospel TV. And I need to stick with the short words, Chuck, not the long ones. Chuck, how you doing, buddy?
I've been doing fine, Joe. Thanks for having me on. And,
absolutely.
Congratulations to your wife. If you get time, give me a phone call. I can tell you the dirty stuff on it.
No. We're not. Does
he still bark at the moon at night? I mean, he used to do that all the time.
Yes. It's more of a howl now.
Yeah. The barking took a wear on my lungs at my age. So I to go to howling only. Hey, we're going to get to Chuck here in a minute. We're going to be talking about his ministry, and we're going to be talking about the man, the myth, and the legend, Chuck Bryant. And I'm going to throw a few stories in. Not very many, because I think he's probably got more on me than I've got on him. But let's go ahead and get the devotional started and turn Chuck loose right after our devotional.
30-second devotional by Mr. Barry Young. Today we're reading out of Ephesians. You want to say something?
Yeah, Ladina, come on, my friend.
Oh, okay.
Our friend.
We're reading out of Ephesians chapter 4, verse 15. Instead, speaking the truth in love. A private faith is a powerful faith. Be bold with the gospel of Jesus and share that gospel in love. And I looked it up. Yes, I looked it up on Captain Google this morning so I could get more.
Google, that cracks me up.
So I could get more of the verse in. Instead, speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become in every respect the mature body of him who is the head, that is Christ.
Amen.
Yes.
I like sharing it in love, not in beat you over the head with it.
So here's what it says what the meaning of Ephesians 4:15. Instead of falling for false teaching, the church should be truth oriented in the context of love.
Come on.
Verse 15 is a description of what it means to be mature, but instead of the church remaining at the mercy of false teachers, it should orient itself to growth in Christ as the head of the body. That's such a popular topic for me lately. I see a lot and I hear a lot in the church of they just don't want to tell the whole truth.
Whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you.
There are touchy parts in the Bible, and there are touchy parts that we need to hear about, that I think people need to hear about, and nobody wants to talk about those.
There are a lot of scriptures, everybody's got their opinion, or I can remember, and Chuck, you may now, Chuck may, I think we had this conversation one time. There's churches that won't touch Revelation because I was raised believing by certain preachers that we either weren't smart enough to understand Revelation or we weren't supposed to read it. But yet that's the only book in the Bible that says to be blessed when you get into it. Don't it, Chuck?
Yeah, most definitely. One reason they don't want to teach Revelation anymore because it speaks the truth. It tells
Amen.
what's going to happen when the tribulation starts, and
Mhm.
everybody's so scared of it. And I mean, I've been sitting in the churches, and they'll, you go in to preach, and they'll say, "I hope you're not preaching in Revelation tonight."
Oh yeah, it's crazy. It's
Yeah, that was my
crazy.
topic today.
I mean, I'm going to tell you what, for a Christian, Revelation is nothing but joy. For what's coming and what God's getting ready to do. I mean, it's joy for a Christian. I mean, that's why he says to be blessed. When you read this. All right, guys, we've got Chuck Bryant over here now. Chuck is out of where you are out of. Are you in Georgia or
Cleveland,
are you in
Tennessee.
Cleveland? Okay, Tennessee.
Cleveland, Tennessee. And if you don't know about Cleveland, Tennessee, let me enlighten you. That is the home of the Church of God. It was also the movement that started the movement all the way back in the 1800s, and it also was the part that after the Church of God started, also started the Pentecostal movement, and also brought in the Assemblies of God. And there's been other denominations that have spun off Church of God and the Assemblies of God.
Oh, absolutely. Now we're going to be talking about now. If you're not familiar with WOTG, Chuck, how many radio station sites, internet radio, do you have now?
We've got a total of, I believe, 9 or 10. We've got WOTG. We got Chattanooga Gospel Radio, which is out of Tunnel Hill, which is down in Georgia past Ringgold. And then we've got Branson Gospel Radio. We've got See the Vision Radio. Those names should be familiar to you.
I was going to say, I even know those.
And anyway, we've also got KOTG, which is the sister radio station. Pastor Jack Mondale. We got WORB out of Portsmouth, Ohio, which is with Sister Roberta Blevins. We've got Detroit Gospel Radio, which is with Brother Gary Hill. And matter of fact, Brother Gary Hill's on the screen on Branson Gospel Radio TV right now behind me. And we've got KVAF, which was Pastor Mario. And then we've got some others, and we've got two
down in Wiley, Texas.
We got Wiley Gospel Radio that's in Texas. We just launched it a couple weekends ago. And we got Wiley Gospel TV. We got WGHC TV. We've got Branson Gospel TV. And starting in September or November, we're fixing to launch Ohio Valley Gospel TV, which is going to handle Indiana, Michigan, Kentucky, and New York City, Pennsylvania, because a lot of people, my background is more Church of the Brethren, and the Brethren is from Pennsylvania, and they're in the more mid-east than anything, but that's where I got my start.
So now you've been doing the radio. You got into the radio back in 2015. 14, and I got into it close to that same time in 15.
Yeah.
I met Chuck. This is how long we go back. I'd heard Chuck Bryant. Now he is in that time. You were in Georgia at that time.
No, I was in Florida. I was in St. Petersburg, Florida.
And I kept hearing my listeners were going, hey, do you know Chuck Bryant? Do you know Chuck Bryant? I don't know who Chuck Bryant is. Well, which was funny is because Chuck Bryant was, have you heard Joe Inman? Have you heard Joe Inman? Have you heard Joe Inman?
Yeah.
He's like, I don't know who Joe Inman is. So finally, I don't know how we ended up meeting. It was through obviously Facebook or something like that. We ended up crossing paths. And then we come together, and I had See the Vision at that time. Well, I just taken over as a pastor of a church, and I wanted to kind of dedicate more of my time into pastoral. And so I was praying what to do with the radio station because we wanted to get the music out. We wanted to get the message out. And so I told Chuck, I said, listen, I want to give you See the Vision, but the deal is I want to keep my preaching program on there. So he charged me a minimal fee, and I think only $80. Everybody else he was charging 30. But no, but he now has See the Vision. And where's that one located at now, Chuck?
See the Vision is actually now a private label radio station. It handles 2 TV stations. It handles a TV that's in Norcross, Georgia. And then it's out on another TV station that is out west somewhere.
Okay.
And it continually plays. And then what it does on its station ID, it says you're listening to See the Vision and the WOTG radio network, because we get to run commercials on their network.
There you
And
go.
we've been, when money gets better, See the Vision is actually going to come back, and it's going to be out of I'm thinking about putting it back in Arkansas.
And that one, because it started out in Lead Hill, Arkansas, and that one, Southern Gospel is the music on that one.
So it's Southern Gospel with a little bit of Christian country.
When I started that station, I was brand new to it, and I put on there everything. You would be listening to Petra, then go down to the McCameys. Well, that was putting some shock systems in people's heads. So, so we had to, I changed it up. By the time Chuck got it, he finally fixed what I broke. But, and then later on, we ended up with Branson. We partnered up, got Branson Gospel, and he's doing very well with it. And in fact, I have Branson Gospel TV on our Roku. You can download that app on there. Now, here's the reason that I wanted, not only one, because it's National Friends Day, and Chuck's been a longtime friend of mine, and we've gone through a lot together. But and he is an amazing computer guy, because he told me last night as I'm talking to him on the phone, he says, "You only call me when you need something." I said, "You're the man that says if I need anything, call you." So how do you win? How do you win on that? So anyway, but one of the things that I wanted to talk about before you got into radio, what brought you into radio? Because we had started radio around the same time. You faster than I am. But what brought you into radio? Because I mean, you were an IT guy and different things like that. A single dad for a while. I mean, you just had a lot going on.
Well, back in the late 90s, 99, I was a part of Way FM in Fort Myers, and I was a youth pastor with the Church of Brethren in North Fort Myers, and we always got together. I'd always wanted to be a DJ since I was a child.
Right.
And we'd get together on Youth Pastor Friday, and it come around to my mic. You'd had Ben from the Church of God, you had Jason from the Assemblies of God, you'd have Brother Pete in there sometimes, and Dan Betzer.
Oh yeah.
Okay, well, Dan had his church in Fort Myers, and it was the first Assemblies of God in Fort Myers, and Pastor Doug, which is now running a church, but back then it was about the time Columbine hit. So we got all together and we put a thing called Union Station together, where we didn't put walls against religion. We put teens together. And we had things that was called the all night ride, where we take the teens around, take about 6,000 kids. And by early morning, the kids are still going, and we're passed out trying to sleep in a corner. So my heart for radio was then, but I put a lot of time into my ministry and teaching the kids. I had about 75 kids that nobody wanted, but I did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and so we lived in a little subdivision in North Fort Myers, and so I asked God to let me quit the church, because God's the one that put me there. He called me down there from North Georgia. Matter of fact, where the church I'm going to be preaching at tonight, I've got to go over there and preach for Pastor George tonight. But anyway, I asked God to let me out of my contract, as I put it, and God let me out of it. And he said, someday I'm going to call you back. Well, I jumped into computers, and I worked for Sony. I worked for HP, worked for all kinds of medical. I made a lot of good money. And then in 2013, I had a granddaughter that was fixing to be born in Texas, and she had CCAMs. She had cancer in the lungs before she was ever born.
Wow.
And so I got down on my hands and knees. The only thing I knew how to do was pray.
Right.
and God answered prayer. And then one day I'm driving back up from Fort Myers from going to do a job, and he says, "We're going to start a radio station." And I said, "Okay, whatever you think." And I put that on hold. That was in 2013, and I went through all that. And he said, "This is the day this is going to launch, and it better be online." Well, I did everything I can to. I put it there, and I crashed the system because I had no idea about
Now
how to
wait a
do
minute.
a
Wait a
radio.
minute. Stop.
No, don't stop
Okay.
me.
Did you just tell me you crashed the system?
I crashed the system
Do you know how many
3
times you chewed me out for doing that?
Yeah, but I did it 3 times. You did it 67 times.
It's not
Call
even
me in the
right,
middle
man.
of the night. Call me in the middle of the
Yes.
night and tell me see the vision was down and have to put it back up.
What do I
But
do?
but you know something? I learned a lot in that 1 year.
Yeah.
And when we launched it in 2015, we'd already been on the air a year, and I had no gospel music whatsoever. I went to all the thrift stores in the surrounding area in St. Petersburg, Largo, Seminole, Pinellas Park, all of them trying to find music. I found a bunch of a Carmen in there,
Mhm.
which I still have, but I was a Southern gospel radio station, not a contemporary radio station or country radio station, unlike my previous partner was. And anyway, so I was going to stay with one genre. So I got some music. Somebody told me, go here, go there. So I went to a couple of conventions, and oh, they give you CDs, and which
Oh,
now I belong to all of the Southern Gospel comps and stuff. And I've been to NQC and stuff. Well, cut a story short, there was this long haired guy with earrings that I know calls me up, and we started talking, and we became friends. And then that's when Joe and I in 2015, he was running, and we try not, when he was on his program, I tried, after I met him, I tried not to overlap him because
yeah.
at night
Yeah.
I did a program, he did a program, and one night we had the Burgess, we had Miss Burgess on, and she was telling us about Tom's death. And you had her on, and I had her on, but we didn't
Yes.
want to do it at the
Yes.
same time.
It
And
was the
so
anniversary. It
we
was the anniversary of Tom's death, and we were doing
yeah.
shows.
And so Vonda wanted to come on, and she goes, "I got a problem." And I said, "What's your problem?" She goes, "I got Joe Inman from See the Vision." I said, "Yeah, I know Joe. Joe's a friend of mine." I said, "We just became friends." And I said, he's a little out there, but anyway, um,
What a guy.
and so anyway, hey, I'll help you out all I can, you know that. But anyway, um, we started not overlapping because he came on at 7 o'clock, which would have been 8 o'clock our time. I took
Mhm.
mine to 9 o'clock, and then eventually I removed my program at night and I went to early morning. And so I had to get up and hit the road early, so I did the morning show. And that's where I'm at now. I've been out of the limelight, but in the limelight, as you would call it, because I've been behind the scenes. And I broke my shoulder in 2020, and we're just now getting back to where we're at. But I've been running the TV stations and making sure all the radio stations are online, and that can be hard sometimes when you got your elbow up to your shoulder here and
Right.
trying to do it with one hand, and then take care of a wife that has been bedridden and
Mhm.
taking care of her, and then just trying to take care of day-to-day operations of everything else.
So now, when he talked about going over to the shows and stuff and getting CDs, I remember my first CGMA was See the Vision. It was an all week long deal. Okay. And now, if you now like with Radio Free America that we have here with Axe Media Group, we have a now. Back then, it was a little bit of a different story. Everybody handed you CDs, didn't they, Chuck?
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't do MP. They didn't send you MP3s back then. So I went to the first event in the first one under See the Vision, and I walked out with 60 some CDs. Okay. Now you say, wow, that's really cool. The problem is you have to listen to 60 some CDs. And especially if
And
you get new artists, then you're like, okay, which song do you want to promote? All of them? No, no, no. So and that's one of the things with Chuck when we have new artists, we try to guide them and help them. No, you really just want to release one if we're going to promote a song that way for charting and things like that. So
well,
now,
That's a lot of homework.
oh, you ain't kidding. You are
yeah,
not kidding.
right,
Here's the bad thing about the CD is that some CDs that we had software that we used, and if the song was not coded and having the
yes,
information on it, you had to
yes,
sit there, even though that you were going to rip the CD because you wanted the whole CD because you didn't want to go back. And they were very few companies that you picked up. And I'm not picking out no names or anything,
right,
but
right.
I came back from my very first convention, which was in May of 2015, and or it was 16. I came back from my first convention. I came back with 180 CDs on a
Mm.
340.
Oh,
That was the country event that you and I was supposed to show up to in Oklahoma, and then
oh,
something
okay.
happened that you couldn't show up for that one because we were going to do a team event at that
I
time
do
for the
remember
first
that.
time.
I remember that.
And so I came back, and it was like 6 weeks of sitting there in the morning while I'm doing the morning show. Hey, we got some new music coming in by such and such, and oh, and I'm going to have to code this, but we're going to go ahead and play it. And so I got track
Yeah.
one, track two, and then had
I've
700
I've
different
actually
track
had to do some
ones.
coding at the radio station Joe and I had
And
previously, and it's very tedious.
it's a pain in the tush.
Yes.
It
You
sure
know,
is.
now I mean it's gotten better, but you still get a few, but a lot of people now are doing the MP3s or like
If
if you go to
if they send it, like Don Style sent me a song this morning that he wrote for another artist, and I get emails all the time. It's easy to code them because it comes in on an email and already there, and you can do it in 2 or
yeah,
3 minutes. But when you have to do a CD that may have 15 songs, and you're sitting
that's
Mhm.
there looking at the song, and when you don't got very good eyesight,
yeah, yeah.
it's hard to do that. And now that we belong to all the compilation CDs, I have to do very little coding,
Well, you
very
see, that's
little.
what I like with the compilation CDs because a lot of those guys have websites and they give you the link and you can just download, pick the song. It's already said and done. Download the song, and I love that. I absolutely love that. Just go in, pick the ones you want, and they keep them for. I mean, they may have 100 CDs on there with 10 different songs, 10 different artists per CD. And that's great,
Yeah,
but it's come a long ways from when we first started with the internet radio, and it's getting better now. Chuck has gone into with the Roku, and you now
yes,
when me and Chuck met, I believe I had See the Vision, and
yeah.
Chuck I think had 3 stations at that time.
I had actually I started. It was funny that the guy that owns that program or the where you're at, I had WOTG, and I had Tech Talk Radio, which because me being a
Yeah,
computer
Tech Talk
guy, I
Radio.
always talk. I started it, but launched it in 6 weeks. I kept hearing crickets. And so I thought, well, I got to put some music on this. And I was trying to figure out what to do. And then I built the oldie station with a
Yeah,
twist of having God in it because I put the Newsboys in it. I put Jars of Clay singing right with the Beatles and Survivor and all those. And it went over great. I did one of Joe's things. I mixed a little Christian rock with rock and roll, and
yeah,
it went off and it took off real good.
yeah.
And then when I was in Oklahoma and I came back, we met with a pastor down there, and he wanted to get involved in radio. So at the same time, I had a lady out of Ohio that wanted to get involved, and that's when we created the 4 stations. And then about the same time, Joe got busy with the church and other things, and then Joe handed me over to See the Vision. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, I'm having a hard enough time trying to keep up with what I've got. Now I've got to See the Vision. And when I took the whole entire database over from See the Vision, Joe had everything in there.
Everything I did.
Like he said,
It was,
he had
it was a
Petra,
nightmare.
he,
It was a
he had
nightmare.
Southern Gospel. It took like 6 days to download his database with his internet connection he had.
Oh, it was
And
terrible.
I just said, send me the hard drive. I'll send it back to you. So when I got the hard drive, they were songs that wasn't coded. I took the whole entire database, I moved it over, and I created a Southern Gospel radio station. And now the place is, I'm in St. Petersburg. I've got one in Ohio and I've got one in Texas. Where do we put this thing at? So I put it in Branson because that's where pretty much what we talked about.
Right.
And so we put See the Vision back in Branson. So we ran See the Vision in Branson for a while. And then in 2017, Joe decided that we were going to get back together. And we started.
He said Joe decided. Joe decided. I think I was coerced. I think I was coerced.
I don't believe that.
Yeah.
I don't believe he was forced.
Here's the thing on National Friends Day, my friend. Joe calls me up, and this is at the end of his political career.
Oh, that was a nightmare.
And he says, I want to get back into radio. And he's told me this before. And I said, sure you do. He said, no, I'm serious.
He's always got a plan and an idea.
Yeah,
and I
he's
don't
always
have to
got a
tell you
plan,
that.
that's for sure.
He's always got something going on and a plan and an idea.
And then he turned around and he came back and he says, no, I'm really serious. And I said, okay, so what's your game plan? What you want to do? He says, this is actually what I want to do. And I said, okay, where are we going to put it? He said, Branson. And I said, what do you want to call it? He said, well, I want to go into partners with you in case, that way we can do it together. And I'm like, okay. So we started working on Branson in August. It didn't go live until I think it was sometime in September that year.
Yeah,
and then I said, well, and then one of our friends that runs a show on See the Vision and WOTG, she wanted to be on there too. And so she flew me to Branson that year. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, well, hey, let's just do this in late October. And Joe and I went and did some interviews. And I said, hey, this will be great. And so we interviewed everybody. What was that? The CGMA by Dan Duncan? Yeah.
So CGMA that was Donna and the Hills by the Hills.
And so that was my first time in Branson. I've been back several times since, but had to fix things. But anyway, we started Branson at that time. And our total goal was it was going to be a Christian country radio station. And then Joe got a hold of it, and it went to jazz, it went to hip hop, it went to.
It ended up staying. We did the Christian country Christian country, and I threw in some blues, some of the Christian blues. I mean, it was hillbilly rock, I guess what you'd call it, Christian hillbilly rock. Yeah. And is what we ended up, and it went very well. It was doing very well. In fact, the first year it was out, it was nominated out of Nashville as one of the top 10 stations, and we were competing against FM, AM, and internet. And and it was an honor. We didn't win, but it was just an honor to be nominated for first year out.
That was also the same year that WOTG got nominated, and we got nominated. Both of us got nominated at the same time for Branson Gospel, right. And I got it for WOTG and See the Vision.
Yeah,
and that would have been. Go ahead.
What was his name? He's got the Christian country station, and I know you guys
Greg
partner
Dodson,
up now.
Or Marty.
Greg. Yeah, both of them, Marty and Greg, both.
Marty
were nominated in the top 10. So
six or seven of the radio stations at that time got nominated for the CGMA.
Nice.
And so that was an honor in itself, But here's the thing one of the things I want to talk about, because one of the big things that people want to and I know Chuck has had this phone call, this text, Facebook message, and all this, because I know I have had it 1,000,000,001 times, and he's probably had it more than I. And how many people, Chuck, do you think you've had through the years say, I want to start an internet station? How do you do it?
I have created, helped create over 80 radio stations.
And here's the
in
thing
my
that a lot of
time.
these guys, and now when internet radio first come out, because in 2013, when we were getting into it, of course, there wasn't as many internet radio stations as there was now. What you would get is you'd get this high school kid in his bedroom and say, I'm going to create one. And then, it'd go off air in a week, or something to that effect. And so it kind of put a real damper on internet radio. And that's one of the things I love with who we're with now with Radio Free America, is, they've established and been around for about 10 years now, and they've got a long term. So the Radio Free America started about the same time me and Chuck started ours. And so
it takes commitment and dedication.
Yes, exactly.
As of next year, starting in
You got an
January
anniversary
coming up, we've got an anniversary coming up with WOTG. And then I'm just going to launch them both at the same time, because pretty much it was just a month or two before See the Vision and WOTG was going together. And I remember when you first started doing your website, it was this awful
it was
looking
it was awful. I was not a web designer.
And the website was on Wix, and it had a record playing on it, and then Joe coming on and doing his program. And then here I am. I dropped $500 because back then I had more money than I had since. And I hired somebody to do my radio station.
Yeah, I had no radio and no sense.
And so, I mean, it's been a learning experience, but now, I mean, I have people call me, hey, Chuck, I'm having issues. I've had people out in California. I've had people in all over the Midwest. Matter of fact, I just got done helping somebody, 3 radio stations in Texas. And then I helped a station in Las Vegas. They were doing, it's a hip hop type radio station, and I'll help anybody they want if they'll listen to what I tell them to do.
Right.
And I just got done doing one like the setup that we used to have, where we had the radio on one side, we had the soundboard and everything else in the other computer. And when your sound got done, and the biggest part of what Joe's problem was everybody that was with Joe at that time, they wanted to get in there, and I had to, I had to drive to Branson one time because one of the show hosts you had jacked up everything. And I drove up, jacked it up. We're up there, me and him both is up there literally at 2:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
Fixing this thing. His daughter, what was it? Your daughter just graduated high school. And you came over. This was when you was over at Sister Vicky's house.
Yep, it was in the basement of Paxton's house. Yep, Paxton Studios.
We tore that whole entire system apart, put it back together. At 4:30 in the morning, Joe's on his way home to where he can go preach the next day. I'm in bed. I'm up at 8 o'clock after only sleeping 3 hours. Hopped back in the car and drove back to Dalton because I had to go to work the next morning. And I'm going to tell you right now, that was the tiredest I've ever been. But I've helped out with Heaven's Country. I've helped out with Brother Howdy's station that's down in Texas. I've helped with many radio stations in Florida and just all over the place.
And that's one of the things that I found in the music, on the independent artist level and things like that. It's a small world, and you get to know people, and when you meet them and things like that, and there's some amazing artists out there that's in this for, and to give the good, the bad, and the ugly of the industry. There's some amazing artists out there who has a heart for ministry, and then you've got some artists out there who doesn't have the heart for ministry. They're in it for the money or whatever, the fame or whatever the recognition or whatever. And here's the thing that I have loved about Chuck from the beginning is Chuck's heart's for the ministry. Chuck's heart is to get the message out, whether it's preaching, whether it's the word. And I don't know how many times that we've teamed up, done different things, have been on the phone for many hours, or, been up working all night long and different things like that. But he takes it for real. And that's one of the things with Chuck Bryant. And I know you can go to, what's your website that points you to everything?
The radio station is WOTGradionetwork.com, and the TV station is WOTGTV.com.
And one of the reasons that I wanted to bring Chuck on here also is because we've got Radio Free America. You can go to axmediagroup.com and get on or download our app. But I wanted to show that there's no fighting between us, because our heart is the same thing, and that's to get the message out. That's to get the word out. That's
not because you wanted to start another radio station with him.
Yeah, no. My hands are full. My hands are full.
He called me a couple of weeks ago and messaged me online. I said, "Give me a call." And the first words is, "Hey, I got this new project I want to work on." And I said, "I hope that we're not going to start another radio station."
Hello. Can you hear me?
Chuck, I got a great idea for a radio station.
And he called me when he started the other radio station up that y'all used to own. And I go, yes. I hope that you're not going to get me involved in it, because I can't handle no more.
Don't you do this to me.
I did not get Chuck in that one. However, I did make several phone calls.
Well, I have to say, I have to commend you, because I've only known Joe for 3 years. And I have to commend you. Yes. Well, bless your heart is what I'm going to say.
You guys are killing me, man.
I need to commend you for still being friends with Joe at this point. After all the years of his, hey, I have a great idea.
I'm gonna reach out, and I'm gonna put this out there. There was a time in Joe's life that it was really dark, and that's the way I'm going to put it, because we don't need to put things out there, air it out. And when he was stepping down from Branson Gospel Radio, because of that, I said, "Don't go nowhere. Stay with me." And he said, "I don't want to give the network a black eye. I don't want to give WOT." I said, "We'll write it out. That's what Christian brothers do."
That's right.
And he thanked me for it. And he says, "No, but this is the best thing to do." And that was and let me tell you something, to be friends and be partners for 5 years with him on everything we did. It was like every night we talked. And it was sometimes way early in the morning. Call me while I'm sitting at work on a post or something, because I work security to where I could do this full time. And he'd call me, "Hey, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? Hey, I'm having trouble trying to get this to work." And I said, "Well, reboot your system." "I'm on the air." I said, "Hey, you're going to have to reboot." And at that time, we were using another piece of software than what we're doing now with Radio DJ. And it was like a big hole. And it was like that later on that year was probably the darkest time of my life, was because in October the 19th, I had just got back from a big concert in Georgia with Jordan's River. You remember them, don't you?
Yep.
Pastor Randy.
Mm-hmm.
And Randy and them was stepping down. Randy was taking a church, so that was going to be the last time. And I got home the following weekend. Donna slipped in the shower, and we're at the hospital. She's in a coma. And so we had to go through that. And we had just got her home when COVID hit. Both of us had COVID, because I was going back and forth between 2 hospitals. And I was so sick on Christmas Eve, I'm laying on the couch and begging God to take me, because I had COVID. And that was in December 24th. And then a month later, I'm on my way to Florida to do Gospel Fest or something like that, Fire Fest with the Bristows and appointed too. And so, and then I got back, and then I was in a work-related accident from somebody that threw me, and I broke my shoulder. So here we go. And now we're trying
So
to do
you
the
and Joe
radio
have been
and the
a
TV.
huge support system to each other for many, many, many years.
Yeah.
And the
And
connection was always God.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you
Always.
see, that's one of the reasons he had to come on Friends Day. Guys, my time is up. But Chuck, thank you, buddy, for coming in and not going into some of the deeper stories. I so appreciate that on many levels.
Well, Chuck,
All
it was
you
great
have
to
to do-
finally put a face with the name.
You
Hey,
too.
guys,
All
this
you're
is-
going to do is reach out to WOTGradio.com. Thank you so much, guys.
That's Joe. I'm out of here. God bless.
Bye.